So I thought I'd take a moment to go over a few things I've got in regards to the Yeswelders, my experience with them to date. I'm going to take these off. I don't think we need them. I have found that pretty much my go-to welder at this point is the MIG Pro 250. I like the 205. Um, and it's an easy welder to use. Once you get used to the synergic settings, it's actually pretty easy to use, and you just change them with whatever you want to do. Metals, the metal you're doing, thickness, and so on. For me, I am finding that I I just like the simplicity of being able to go right to the manual mode of the 250, and um, I find that I gravitate to that one. I've got both of them set up. I can switch to either one. The 250 has the bigger gun, which is a little bit, when you go to the 25 series versus the 15. The 15 is actually, when you're doing really small stuff, is definitely easier to use because it's lighter. But it's only 10 feet and that kind of thing. And right now, working on the Super Sammy, putting the full hydraulic steering on it, um, I've got a 15-foot stinger on the MIG Pro 250, and with the extension that I made for my ground cable, which gives me 20 feet of ground cable, and it's just so easy just to drag that over, and even though the whole purpose originally of getting the 205 was to make a lighter, more portable welding system, because the big Miller-Matic 200, that legacy welder, and that thing weighs like 400 pounds. And by the time you put your two tanks on the back, and I had another welder that was a small Sentry that I did for body work, used for body work above it. It was so darn heavy just to try to move it around in the shop. Was terrible, and it took up a lot of space, and I still had to have some place to put welding wire and all that stuff. So shopping around, I was looking at that 205, and I thought, that'd be a nice little welder. It's light. I could put that on. I could grab a tool cart, and or cabinet, and put that as the base. Use that to hold all my welding stuff. Put both welders on it. Make a little frame underneath it so I could put a couple of tanks on the back, and lo and behold, I'd have a nice little welding rig, approximately the same size as the Miller-Matic 200, and but it would be lighter, and it would house everything I needed, all my accessories, helmets, wire tips, everything. And in fact, that's ultimately what ended up happening. I ended up putting the 205 on there, my 10 plus year old Lotus plasma cutter, and which is also a DC TIG welder with a foot pedal. So I was able to put everything I wanted in on that cart, and it's really, really super handy. However, by the time you get all your wire and everything else, it gets pretty heavy as well. So I mean, it's not nearly as heavy as as that Miller-Matic, but I do find that I don't want to roll it outside over the garage door lip. So I'll roll the welder over to the garage door, and the Super Sammy doesn't fit in my garage because I live in an older home that has 6.5 foot tall garage doors, and so I'd have to flatten the tires to get the Super Sammy in the garage, and then I'm really, really tight on my side, so I just leave it out. I've been working outside and waiting for putting up a windshield around where I'm going to weld, so the wind doesn't blow my shielding gas away. So with that being said, after a year of using both welders, both of them have worked flawlessly. And probably for the full amount of wire that I've put through both welders, I've put more wire through the 205 because I've had it longer, and I've built some pretty heavy duty stuff, like my homemade metal lathe. That's all really thick metal. The Bobcat bucket adapter for one of my customers' tractors, all really heavy duty metal. Built that with the 205, and now we're doing, I'm doing the steering, hydraulic steering, but I'm doing that with the 250. My conclusion is, if you absolutely cannot afford the 250, get the 205. That's a lot of welder. I mean, you're not going to get more welder for the money than you are with the 205. It's just not. I mean, that's, and especially when they have their different sales going on, you're not going to get more welder for the money anywhere, period. Especially for a quality welder. If you can step up to the 250, I do it. It's just easier to use, and it'll do everything that the 205 does and more. And to me, I think that's a bonus. Now, I am going to try the aluminum welding with the 250 at some point here, but I got to get the steering done on the Super Sammy, and I have the liner put together. You saw in the video where I took the Teflon liner out, converted my one of my 10-foot stingers over to a graphene lined stinger, and visiting with a friend who bought the 250 and is welding aluminum with his 250. He's telling me that one of the things that I may have been doing wrong, and I don't know how I missed it, but I think he's absolutely right, is that apparently with the aluminum wire, you've got a reverse polarity. And I did not do that with the 205. So I don't know if the 205 can push aluminum or not. We may try to revisit that again. But since my first attempts to push aluminum, I've bought some nickel tips and nickel plated tips, and I think that will help with the sticking, because I don't think the aluminum will try to burn back and stick to the nickel plated tips. And I had to get those. I actually got those on Amazon, and they weren't exactly cheap, but they're supposed to be heavy duty, be able to handle higher temperatures, have less stick and that kind of thing on them. So that's my thoughts on the difference between, whether if I was to spend money again, and knowing what I know now, gonna go out and buy, and I'm looking at either the 205 or the 250. I would buy the 250, because again, it's just, the manual mode is awesome. It's easy, and it'll do everything the 205 does, but it's hotter. So you could definitely switch to 45 wire and weld some really heavy duty stuff. Thank you for watching.